I cranked on that lawnmower until I had blisters between my fingers. I couldn't get it to start. Finally, I went and got the kid that was supposed to be helping me with the yard, and I was like, dude, what is wrong with my lawnmower? It worked yesterday. I did the backyard yesterday. I just need you to finish up the sides in the front. And he looks at me and said, well, I just filled it up with fuel. I don't know why it won't work. Must be something wrong with your lawnmower. I said, well, where's the can you used? And then I knew the problem. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with StoryPower. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. You know, it doesn't seem like a really hard thing that the reason we use little green labels on the top of our gas cans is because we have things that run on diesel and things that run on gas. Or maybe on your farm you have kerosene as opposed to diesel, but they don't work the same in every machine. In fact, I was standing in a mechanic shop getting the valves adjusted on our Suburban, and a guy comes walking up in a very nice suit, and he is steaming mad. And he says, I can't believe this just happened again, but I need you to send a wrecker. And the guy's like, you got to be kidding me. He said, no. I told her to fill it up. I was going to go inside and pay, and I came back and realized she had put gasoline in my diesel truck for the second time. And the mechanic said, isn't that what you just picked it up for? So we could clean all the gasoline out of the fuel lines? He said, yes. It literally left the shop yesterday, and she filled it up with the wrong fuel again today. Okay, it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? I mean, it's just a nozzle. It's just one type of fuel versus another. I want you to understand, though, from a leadership principle and from a communication principle, we often have the same problem. We don't realize that the one molecule difference, one word difference, one tiny little adjustment changes everything. Often what we find as leaders is we have this fantastic notion, this fantasy, this imagination that as leaders we have the ability to perform alchemy. We can take anything and make gold out of it. No, that's a myth. The idea of taking one person and raising them up to this phenomenal superstar. Look, if the chemistry is there, if you have all the right stuff in the beginning, then yeah. But you know what the biggest key indicator is for whether or not you can take somebody from where they are to where they could be to their potential? Them. You know what stops most people in their life? It's not the obstacles. It's not even the trauma. It's them. It's the base material that you're working with. Right? This is going to sound really harsh, but most leaders don't fail to lead the people on their team because they fail at leadership strategy. Most leaders don't fail to lead their team to great successes because they've got just the absolute worst people. Generally, you don't hire people if you don't see some potential in them, if you don't see some skill set, some natural talent or ability, the right kind of personality. If none of that existed, you wouldn't even have them on your team. I mean, unless they're family and you don't have a choice. But generally speaking, you hire people because they've got some skill and some personality and the right aptitude and the potential to grow. And you put them on your team and you think, I can make gold from this. And I don't mean just profit and money. While obviously if you're in business, that's a big part of it. But if you're in ministry, if you lead a team of volunteers, many of us as leaders still come to the table, so to speak, with the notion that I could take anybody and make them a superstar. It's just not true. Now, let me delineate talent, skill, and willpower. Because when you've got somebody like a Spud Webb as a perfect example, nobody who met Spud Webb in high school under 5'8". That means he was shorter than me, playing against guys in the NBA that were well over 6 feet, some of them pushing 7 feet tall. And he dominated in his era. Why? Because he had the willpower to do it. He had the discipline. He had the habits of getting out there and doing what has to be done to become the best. He worked on his vertical leap. He worked on his speed. He worked on his agility. He worked on his ball handling skills. He worked on his shots, short and long. And he never stopped doing those things. He didn't allow himself, not his physical stature, not his own demeanor, to stand in the way of his success. The challenge for a lot of leaders is we have this myth in our imagination that we can take anybody, and if they just follow our process, we can turn them into great potential. If they just do what we tell them to do, suddenly they'll be incredible people. But the one thing that you keep forgetting is that you're trying to make lead into gold. If they don't want to be better, if they come at you with an attitude of entitlement and disrespect, it doesn't matter how much authority you have in everybody else's life. In that one person's life, you can't move the needle. See, this young man that put diesel in my lawnmower played it really, really well. I think he had everybody else convinced it was an accident. I didn't buy it for 1 second. Look, if you've been around a car for 5 minutes, you can smell the difference between gasoline and diesel. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to distinguish the two just by smell. The fact that they're in different cans, different containers, even the nozzle on the top of it is a different size. I don't know if you remember this. It's been a minute. But back in my day, my first car was a 1967 Chevy Impala. The nozzle on that gas tank, when you open that thing up to put the gas in, you could have put a bowling ball in that thing. It was enormous. But the gas nozzle for the gas pump was also that big for regular gasoline. When they came out with unleaded, the first thing they did was they put that little flappy thing on the inside of your gas can, the gas cap. So when you open the gas cap to put gas in, you couldn't put a regular nozzle in that into that gas tank. You could only put the unleaded. It's a different size. There's a reason for that, so you don't put the wrong one in there. Same thing with the diesel. Now, these days, you pull up and all of your fuel on the gasoline side comes out of exactly the same nozzle. You just have to pick the button. You can accidentally put in ethanol, and many of your new cars won't run on it at all. But it's really hard to put in diesel. It's a different color. It's on the other end of the pump. If you drive both vehicles, though, you run a risk. Doing it by accident is one thing. Doing it on purpose is a whole different thing. Now, this young man made a lot of decisions. He made a lot of decisions that were dangerous, a lot of choices that were risky. And in the season that he was involved in our life, we kind of fell in love with him. The kids fell in love with him. We thought, this guy's had a rough life. He's had a really hard journey, but he's got a lot of potential. He's a sharp kid. He's very charming. He's very attractive. He could go a long way in life if he'll just stop making those self-sabotaging, dangerous, crazy decisions. Here was the challenge. The who that he was lived on the attention that was given to him because of the crazy, dangerous choices that he made. That's how he stood out in the crowd. That's how he got the attention that he wanted. That's how he got all eyes on him. And I hate to say it, but I think it's true. And I know it because there was a season in my life that it was true as well. There was a time, you could ask my mother about it, there was a season in my life that I would lie to get myself in trouble. I would tell things that I knew not to be true because the attention that I got being in trouble was better than being ignored. I'm going to tell you, as a leader, you have people on your team like that right now. And how you navigate that as a leader is going to make the difference between their success and your business's failure. I know that sounds so harsh. It sounds like a big giant hyperbole. It sounds like I'm making stuff up, but I'm telling you right now, there are people in your organization who are so desperate for the attention, for the eyes to be on them, that they will do obnoxious, dangerous things for your business, for your brand, for other relationships. They will damage your culture because their attitude, how they think, plus how they feel, that chemistry is creating a volatile work environment inside themselves. The story that they're telling themselves, I've got to be in the spotlight. Everybody's got to pay attention to me. Everybody's got to look at me. And they will do the crazy stuff to get people to look at them. Just think back for a moment. I was going through wedding photos just yesterday, and I found a wedding photo, and it struck me how odd it was. I know the character of the person in this photo, and personality-wise, it's just so her. But what I saw was a picture of a 4-year-old laying in the floor, ankles tightly together, hands tightly together, and the bouquet from the bride laying on her chest, eyes closed, face to the ceiling. Like she was in a casket, in the middle of the floor, in the middle of the sanctuary, in the middle of a wedding. Because something inside of her says, all eyes must be on me. Whatever I have to do, however much trouble I have to get into, no matter whether I get scolded or might even get a little swat, it's okay if all eyes are on me. Now, when that moves from that 4-year-old to that teenager who says, I don't care if I get yelled at for destroying the lawnmower, if the attention is on me and I don't have to do the work, but I do get noticed, I'm okay with that. Now, advance that 5-10 years, and you have someone who's responsible for major things in an organization, major decision-making, major finances, customer relationships. And they have the same tendency. I don't care how bad the consequences are. If in the moment I get all the attention on me, I win. How many social media influencers operate with the same MO? They just want all eyes on me. You hear me mock them all the time, the clown on the unicycle. Anything to get you to look at me, I just want attention. The challenge with that is when you're the leader in an organization and you have 1, 2, or 10 people, because it's kind of a generational thing at this point. So many. In my era, it was the latchkey kids, right? We were invisible. Nobody knew who we were. We came home from school. We unlocked the door, did our own thing. If we didn't have a key under the mat, we had one around our neck. We walked into the house, sometimes locked the door behind us. Sometimes, because there was nobody home to know when we got home, sometimes we didn't even go home. We got out of school, got on our bicycles, and rode to God knows where. I remember making a 40-mile round trip on my 20-inch bicycle. It's one of the reasons my knees are destroyed. Because there was nobody to tell me I couldn't. I mean, what are they going to do? Come find me? That kind of attitude of I can just get away with anything that I want to and nobody's going to do anything has transferred now to we're always scrolling. We're not really paying attention to what's going on around us. We're sitting at our job assignment. We're sitting at a red light. We're in the middle of a client negotiation and the phone goes off and this device gets the attention. When you understand what that means for you as a leader, you may think it's just a distraction. But it's not. That dopamine hit, that's exactly what the kid laying on the floor was looking for. All eyes on me. It's exactly what the teenager who put the wrong fuel in the lawnmower was looking for. All eyes on me. It's the same dopamine hit. And if you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years old and you're still addicted to the dopamine hit of all eyes on me, you can't be focused on the task at hand, on the job, on the business, on the brand, on the culture that you're supposed to be invested in, because you're still driven by all eyes on me. Now, as a leader, you might think there's a little alchemy that I can do there. I can transform that person into something different. Well, you can. And some people might think, well, I just need to rearrange the chemicals in my workplace. I just need to get rid of that and add this. I need to have less of that personality and more of this personality. And there's some truth to that. I'm going to take you back to some of the basics, though. Jim Collins, good to great, had a great notion. I still don't completely agree with the analogy, but almost everybody in leadership knows it. He said you got to get the right people on the bus. Okay, we'll take that analogy. I still think it's silly because nobody on the bus does anything except the driver. Everybody else is just a passenger. So to take that analogy one step further and say you get the right people in the right seat on the bus, I'm like, who cares what seat you're in? If you're not the driver, you're just here for the ride. But we'll stick with his analogy. How often do you get the people in the bus and then you realize part of the friction that you have is that you have two of those people who are dopamine starved, who absolutely thrive on getting attention. Now, we've all seen, probably been involved in at some point, the one-upsmanship game, right? Well, I did so-and-so. Yeah, well, I did this, and it was that times this. And then I did that. And then we go back and forth, and it's just got to be a little better. It's got to be a little more outrageous, a little more egregious, a little more attention-getting. You know, so you ran the mile in 10 minutes. Woohoo, I did it in 7. Well, I didn't do it in 7. I did it in 3.5. Well, I did it in 1.2. Nobody's ever run the mile in 1 minute. Right? But you'll make up that fantasy, you'll make up that lie, you'll exaggerate those numbers. Why? Because I still have to be the best. I still have to get the attention. What happens when you put those two people on the same seat on the bus? You put those two people as department heads and they compete against each other. You put those two people in the same department and they'll sabotage each other. Your choice as a leader is, do I put them in departments so that they compete, so they constantly push the pressure against the other one? I don't have to pay for the incentive on that. Their own internal motivations are going to do that. They can't stand not being the best. They can't stand being ignored. They'll do anything they can to get the attention, to take it to the next level. If I know that's their makeup, this is diesel fuel, this is gasoline. If I know that's their makeup, I don't have to change them into something else. I just have to know as a leader how to put people in the right place so that their internal motivations work together with the internal motivations of others. My job isn't necessarily to perform alchemy. It's a myth. But it is to perform kind of a chemistry experiment. The challenge for a lot of people is they look at the resume only. Leaders do this all the time. They look at the surface resume. What have you done in the past? They're not looking at the imagination. They're not looking at the character. They're not looking at the makeup. I highly recommend to all of my clients who are in leadership, all of the executives that I coach, I tell them you need to read the Strengths Finders and take the assessment. You need to read the 6 working types of genius and take the assessment. I highly recommend that everybody in your leadership team do the same thing, because what you're going to find is not only do you have a personality style, DISC assessments, and all those are good tools as well. But in the Strengths Finders, you're going to realize that the way you process thought has been a marker all of your life. And once you see what that format is, that grid is, that template is, the chemistry test that you look at and go, oh, yeah, it's some of that. No wonder I couldn't get it to burn. Oh, yeah, it's some of that. No wonder it was burning so hot. See, there's makeup in you. Chemical makeup, emotional makeup, historicity makeup. The stories that you've been telling yourself all your life kind of makeup. The who that you are is made up of all of those things put together. And some of those have been your nature since your first words and your first steps. And you may not have quite put your finger on the pattern yet, but the minute that pattern emerges, you look back at some of the things in your life and you go, oh, well, that explains a lot. In my own journey, I didn't take the Strengths Finders test until about 2012, 2014. And when I took the test, there was a revelation that hit me. Now, I can go back to middle school and high school. In the 2nd and 3rd grade, from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, I skipped a grade. I didn't finish 2nd grade. I went first, 2 weeks of 2nd grade, I went to 3rd. 3rd grade to 4th grade, I skipped 3rd grade, or skipped the 4th grade, went from 3rd grade to 5th grade. So I was ahead a couple of years. But even then, by the time I got 5th, 6th grade, I was the one always getting in trouble because the teacher would explain something and I would always have my hand up. And everybody else is like, can't we just move on? It's time for recess. It's time for lunch. Let's go to the next subject. We're done with this. Let's move on. And in my head, even then, I was thinking, there is no chance you truly understand this. I mean, I get it. You say, I got this. We're ready to move on. But there's no chance you really get this. And so all of my life, I had my hand up. I want to know more. I want to know more. I want to understand more. Tell me again. Explain it like this. By the time I got to high school, I got the other side of that same problem. People thought I was asleep in class, and I could pop up and answer the question. I wasn't asleep. I was bored. It was a challenge for me, but I was still reading stuff that nobody else was reading, nobody cared. First place in the science fair 2 years in a row, one for overall and one for physics. I was still bored. I would get in trouble for being asleep in class. I would get in trouble for raising my hand and asking questions, and everybody else is like, where did that question even come from? I'm like, I just have to figure it out. I was accused by a boss of being a know-it-all. And then I took Strength Finders. And my number one is learner. I'm like a sponge. I can't stop learning. It's not an addiction. It's my makeup. It's the chemistry of who I am. Well, now that I know that, it explains a lot. How many people on your team are you looking at going, what is wrong with them? Why can't they but they won't, and yet the answer is their chemical makeup. And you can't be an alchemist. Look, if what you're working with is lead, figure out how to use lead. As a leader, as part of your responsibility. Get them on the bus if you must. Get them in the right seats on the bus if you have to. But understand who it is that you're working with. That's part of your job. Part of your job as the leader isn't just to pick people out of the ether and assign them a task. Part of your job is to grow them up, to help them understand who they should be, to help them understand who they could be. And if you'll do some of these simple analysis, and I challenge you, don't just take the 6 Types of Working Genius assessment test. Do take it. Don't stop there. Read the book. In the analogy and in several of the podcasts, Patrick Lencioni talks a lot about people who realize after taking the assessment and understanding their own makeup, the who that they are, the kind of person they are, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what drives them. Once they understood that a little better, they adapted their working process, their working environment, sometimes even their job description. You have the wrong job. That's why you are terrible at that. You could be so much better if your job was this. And they see people move and thrive. Look, you don't have to fire everybody on your team and start all over every time you have a clash. But you might be asking yourself, am I operating this chemistry experiment all wrong? Am I mixing the wrong people in the wrong work environment? Am I trying to get something out of them that I never will get? Look, if you put vinegar and baking soda together, you know what happens with that, right? Add a little red food coloring and all of a sudden you have lava, right? What if you use something other than vinegar? Water. What do you get? Nothing. There's no chemical reaction there. You get toothpaste. Baking soda and water, toothpaste. That's kind of inert. That's kind of useless. What are you going to get out of that? But if you understand the properties, the chemicals, the makeup of your team, now you can get somewhere with that. When we talk about attitude engineering, we talk about the power of story. If you listen to the stories that they're telling, they're going to tell you a lot about themselves that you wouldn't have heard otherwise. On many occasions, I sat in the back room doing my work, but also listening to the conversations up front. On many occasions, I walked around with my team and just listened the way they interact with other people, with customers. And that listening wasn't, how are you doing on your job description? How are you meeting your KPIs? Yeah, all those things are important. But if you understand the who that they are, what makes them up, what makes them tick, if you'll take the time to do that as a leader, you can really accelerate their attitude, your engagement, and the chemistry within your place of business. When I realized that learner was my number one, strategy, communication, connectedness, those round out my top 5. When I start putting those things into place and I understand this is who I am, this is what drives me, this is why I behave the way that I do, it changed the way that I interact with people. And when I have the opportunity to walk through that with someone as a leadership coach, I see the light come on and I see them go, oh, that's why I do this. Yeah, it's just your makeup. It's what you do. If you're a bottle of vinegar and I throw baking soda in there, there's going to be reaction to that. Not because you tried to, not because you want to, but because it's your nature. You don't have a choice. The question isn't how do I change your nature? The question is how do I maximize the gifts you've been given? That's the job of the leader. Don't try to make something out of them that's not there. Just figure out what they interact with best and accelerate that to their advantage and yours. Alchemy is a myth. You're not going to take lead or aluminum and change it from tinfoil to gold bars. It's not going to happen. Or you can make them look that way. Many people have tried. Press it down enough, you can make it look like a gold bar. Put enough paint on it, you can make it look like a gold bar. You can even make it out of fool's gold, but it's not going to have the value. And the challenge is when we do that to people, when we try so hard to alter them from what they were made to be into what we need them to be, we end up with something different. We end up with a potential disaster in the making. See, I didn't have enough time in this young man's life to make a drastic difference. He was in and out of our life in a short period of time, probably less than 6 months. We tried. We welcomed him. We loved him. We accepted him. We challenged him. We corrected him. But that series of bad choices that he would constantly make just to get attention, all eyes on me, led to him shortening his own life in a DUI accident. It's tragic. Tragic. It may not be that it's a life or death decision, but it might be a career-ending decision. When someone feels like I don't get enough attention, nobody's looking at me, and I have to do whatever I have to do to get attention. That may be on the leader, unwilling to say, I understand your makeup. I'm going to put you in a place where you can thrive, where you get attention for doing the right things and not the wrong things. If you're a leader and you're challenged with that, you're not sure exactly how to get the best chemical reaction out of your team, let's talk. Let's talk about the attitude hack. Let's better understand the stories that they're already telling, what drives them and what motivates them, and then let's help define the culture by attitude engineering the right conversations into your workplace. That's what we're here for. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. There is a retreat coming up that I want you to know about. It's called the StoryPower Academy Retreat. This StoryPower Retreat is about focusing on your communication skills, taking them to the next level. Discover, develop, draft, deploy, and deliver some of the best stories you've ever learned. You're going to listen, create, connect, relax, and reflect around this beautiful lake scene in Granbury, Texas. It's a chance to rejuvenate and refresh and start over with some of the best training you can possibly imagine around storytelling, leadership, and communication. Join us, get away, and relax.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPower.